There's a place called Timoim Cave, and there archaeologists have found these ancient stone-lined pits. And that's not all. Oil lamps, weapons, human skulls, all around the opening. And do you know what they were used for? Summoning the dead. And the night before King Saul died, he went to one. Let's talk about 1 Samuel 28. We don't hear about it much. It's weird. It's uncomfortable. And for 500 years, we've been told it was just a demon. We've been told wrong. The year is 1010 BC, and the Philistine army has gathered at Shunem. Saul looks across the valley and he sees an army that he can't beat. He's desperate. He prays, and nothing is happening. He consults prophets. Again, silence. He tries casting lots. Blank. God has stopped talking to Saul. And Saul knows why. Years earlier, he'd been told to wait for Samuel before he offered a sacrifice, but he didn't wait. Then he was told to completely destroy the Amalekites, and he kept the best livestock. And Samuel, the prophet who anointed him king, looked him in the eye and said, "Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you as king." Now, Samuel's dead. Saul buried him himself, and tomorrow Saul is going to face the largest Philistine force that he's ever seen. So he does something that the Torah explicitly forbids. He goes looking for a necromancer. And the servants find him one. There's a woman in Endor. The text calls her a Balat Ob, a mistress of the pit. Now the Hebrew word Ob shows up in Job 32:19. And there it means wineskin, a leather bag. And scholars connected that to the sound that mediums would make, muffled hollow voices. Kind of like somebody speaking into a bag. In fact, when Greek translators rendered this word 200 years before Jesus, they used agastrimithos, literally belly speaker. That's where we get the English word ventriloquist. So was the Witch of Endor a fraud? Probably. Isn't that how it usually goes? But here's what makes this story more than superstition. In recent excavations, archaeologists have uncovered at least 3 Philistine ritual pits in Israel. Actual stone-lined pits that were used for necromancy. The word Ob doesn't just describe wineskins. It's likely a word that was borrowed from Hittite, I'll which means ritual pit. The Philistines brought this practice from Anatolia, and when Saul went to Endor, he wasn't visiting a fortune teller with a crystal ball. He was going to a ghost pit. Here's how it worked. The medium would crouch over the pit, speak into it, and then make a sound like voices were rising from the underworld. Clients would believe they were hearing from the dead. But this time, something came out of the pit, and it wasn't part of the show. Saul tells the woman, "Bring up Samuel for me." And she begins her ritual. And then, when the woman saw Samuel, she cried out with a loud voice. She screamed. Think about that. This is her job. This is what she does for a living. She has performed this ritual dozens of times, maybe hundreds. And suddenly she's terrified. Why? Because whatever just happened, this wasn't normal. This wasn't her usual trick. Somebody actually showed up. And she knows immediately who Saul really is. "You are Saul, and you deceived me." Saul might have been like, "Take a number." But Saul gets her to calm down. He's like, "Well, what do you see?" "I see a god coming up out of the earth. An old man wearing a robe." And Saul knew it was Samuel. And here's where we get stuck. Was it actually Samuel, or is it a demon pretending to be Samuel? This question has divided scholars, I just hit my microphone, for 2,000 years. And I'll be honest, the answer kind of surprised me. Because the demon theory, the one that we assume is the traditional view, it was invented in the 1500s. All right, let's look at something. 100 to 400 AD, the early church, the view is it was Samuel. In the 16th century, the 1500s, during the Protestant Reformation, the view was it was a demon. Now in the 21st century, it's been suggested again, it was actually Samuel. The early church fathers, Origen, Justin Martyr, even Augustine, they believed it was actually Samuel. Their argument was simple. The text calls him Samuel 9 times. No qualifications. No, the spirit that appeared to be Samuel. Just Samuel. Origen put it bluntly. To suggest Samuel was not brought up is to say Scripture's record is not true. So what happened during the Reformation? Politics. Calvin, William Perkins, King James VI, they all said it was a demon, unanimously. And the reason wasn't textual, it was theological. Reformers were fighting the Catholics over praying to saints and praying for the dead. If Samuel could be contacted from beyond the grave, that gave Rome ammunition. And so the Reformers said, it's a demon. The dead can't be reached. Case closed. But here's what I can't get past. The text explicitly says it's Samuel. And there's really no good reason to doubt it. And here's the evidence that settles it for a lot of people. There's this ancient Jewish text called the Sirach. It was written around 200 BC. 200 years before Jesus, before the church, before any of these debates. And it says this: even after he had fallen asleep, he prophesied and made known to the king his death, and lifted up his voice from the ground in prophecy. From the ground. That is a direct reference to 1 Samuel 28, and the author, a Jewish scribe 2,000 years closer to the event than we are, had no doubt it was Samuel. And the Septuagint goes even further. The Greek Old Testament adds a line to 1 Chronicles 10:13 that's not in Hebrew. And Samuel, the prophet, answered him. Not a demon answered him, not an impostor, Samuel the prophet. Now here's the detail that connects us to everything else we've talked about on this channel. When Saul asks the medium what she sees, she says something strange. I see Elohim coming up out of the earth. Elohim, the word from God. Now, any of you that's read Michael Heiser, you're going to be familiar with that word. But why would she use that word for a dead human prophet? Because in ancient Israel, Elohim wasn't a name. It was a category. It meant inhabitant of the spiritual world. Yahweh is an Elohim. Angels are Elohim. The gods of the nations are Elohim. And the dead, once they cross over, they're Elohim too. Don't y'all miss Michael Heiser. Let me give you a quote. The word Elohim points to a plane of existence. And Elohim is a being whose proper habitation is the spirit world. Samuel, now dead, had entered that category. He was a resident of the unseen world, and the medium, whatever her usual tricks, had just encountered the real thing. And what Samuel says next is devastating. Why do you consult me now that the Lord has departed from you and become your enemy? The Lord has done what he predicted through me. The Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hands and given it to David. Tomorrow, you and your sons will be with me. A little rough, isn't it? No comfort, no loopholes, just truth. And here's the thing. Every word came true. The next day, Saul's sons die in battle. Saul falls on his sword, and the kingdom is passed to David. Demons don't deliver accurate prophecy that fulfills God's purposes. This was Samuel, and this was God's judgment. So what do we do with this? First, the Bible's weirder than we let it be. Necromancy wasn't just a superstition. It had infrastructure. Ghost pits had been excavated, and God took it seriously enough to make it a capital offense. Second, God doesn't always protect us from the consequences of our choices. Saul wanted to hear from God, but he had spent years ignoring God's voice. And when he finally got desperate enough to use forbidden means, God let him hear exactly what he didn't want to hear. And third, the dead aren't toys. Samuel's first words were rebuke. Why have you disturbed me? The spiritual world's real. The dead are real. And messing with boundaries that God has set isn't a game. Saul's story ends in a ghost pit, getting the prophecy he dreaded. Not because God abandoned him suddenly, but because he'd been walking away for years. Here's the good news. You're not Saul. You've not been rejected. God's not going silent on you. The fact that you're watching a video about 1 Samuel 28 suggests actually that you want to understand Scripture, not run away from it. Saul's tragedy wasn't just a seance. It was the years of small compromises that got him there. The question isn't what would you do the night before a battle. The question is, what small voice are you ignoring today? I appreciate you watching. And if this helped you see something new in this strange story, I would love it if you'd subscribe. I'll try to make videos every week, get back in the swing of things. I want to make the Bible's weird parts make a little more sense. I'll see you in the next one. God bless you.